Okay, we begin today the Gemara on Daf Yud Gimel Amud Beis, 4 lines up from the bottom of the Amud where it says V'chad. Okay, so the Gemara here is discussing smicha, which is rabbinic ordination, the way it was then, which is when you are connected, going all the way back Ishmi Piyish until Moshe Rabbeinu. And the Gemara before said that the smicha has to be done by 3 people, only three. Not 1, the way it was by Moshe Rabbeinu, not 71, a Sanhedrin, but 3. The Gemara didn't find a source for this, but that was the conclusion the Gemara said. So the Gemara asks on this, B'chad loy samech, 1 individual that has smicha, can he not give over that smicha to someone else? But Rav Yehuda said the name of Rav. Beram, however, Zochar Oisei Ha'ish Latayv. This individual is remembered for the good. Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava Shmai, and his name is Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. Shel Malehu, if not for him, Nishtakchu Diniknosis Mi Yisrael. The halachas of knosses, which is penalties, would have been forgotten from Yidden. So the Gemara clarifies what this means. Nishtakchu. He meant to say that they would have been forgotten. How would it have been forgotten? Nigresino. If you forget them, you can learn. You can always learn the halachas. Ella rather, Batlu Dinek Knosses Mi Yisrael. Not Nishtakchu, but the halachas of Knosses, that there should be dayanim that have the smicha, that are able to paskin the Dinek Knosses. That would have been Batlu from Yidden. And Rashi brought before, the Gemara before mentioned this, that in order to be able to paskin for Dinek Knosses, you have to have proper smicha. It says in the Pasuk Elikim regarding to be a part of a real bezdin. So for this, you have to have smicha. So if not for Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, the continuation of smicha would have been Batlu. What happened? Shapa machas, once in this time, Gozra, Malchus, Harsha, Gzeir al Yisrael. So the wicked government made a decree on the Yidden, Shekol HaSaymech, anybody that gives smicha, Yeharig will be killed, and V'chol HaNismach, anybody that receives smicha, Yeharig will also be killed. And V'ir, Shesaymchem Ba, in the city that they give smicha also, Ticharav will be destroyed. And Utchumin, Shesaymchem Ba'am, Ya'akru, even the boundaries around the city of that area where he gives smicha will also be uprooted. So Ma'asa Yehuda Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. So what did Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava do? Halach v'yashav loy ben shnei harim gedolim. He went and he sat between 2 big mountains. Uben shtei ayaris gedolis, between 2 large cities. Uben shnei tchumei Shabbos, between 2 areas of tchumei Shabbos, meaning he wasn't in the boundary of any city. It was ben Usha l'Shfaram, between the 2 cities of Usha and Shfaram. So he didn't want that if it will be caught, then the entire city and area should be destroyed. And the V'samach Sham, and over there he gave smicha for Chamisha Zekenim, for 5 elders. Ve'elohein, Rab Meir, V'Rab Yehuda, V'Rab Shimon, V'Rab Yosi, V'Rab Elazar ben Shamua. And Rav Avia Moisef, Rav Avia added that there was another one, Av Rab Nechemya. He gave all of them smicha. Kivin Shik Kidaway Ve'yem Behem, the enemies, the government, they heard about this. Amar Lahem, and they came. They were coming there to come and chase them, to kill them. So Amar Lahem, he says to the Chachamim, Banai, my children, Rutsu. Escape, run away. Amrulai, so they said to him, Rebbe, Matei Alecha. Rebbe, what's going to be with you? So he couldn't, he was old and he wasn't able to escape along with them. Amar Lehen, so Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava said to them, Hareini mutal lefneim ke'even she'en lo hoivchem. I'm sitting here like a stone that nobody can turn over, meaning that I'll remain here and they'll attack me, and meanwhile you'll be able to run away. Or others say, I think the Marsha says that he says that I'm like a stone, that even if they kill me, whatever they torture me with, I will not, it won't hurt me, it won't bother me. Like a stone that doesn't have feelings. So Amru, they said that Leizazu Misham, the enemies, when they came and they attacked him and they found him there, they didn't leave from him. They threw in him 300 spears, and iron spears, and they turned him into a sieve. And he was killed there, and the other Chachamim that ran away got smicha from him. That what is Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, that he's the one that made sure that there should be the Chachamim that had smicha so they can paskin even Dinek Knosses. But the point is, what do we see here in this story? That Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava gave smicha alone. That's what it says, that he brought these Chachamim himself between the mountains. And before we said that you have to have dafka 3. So the Gemara says that Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, Achrini hava ba'adei. He had another 2 along with him to give the smicha. The reason why the other 2 are not mentioned is Mishum Kvaydai de Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. Because of the honor, the greatness of Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava, he was the greatest amongst them. The other 2 are not, so only his name is mentioned. I mentioned yesterday that according to the Rambam, even though you need 3 for smicha, but only one of them has to be a musmach himself, has to have smicha all the way back to Moshe Rabbeinu. The other two with him don't have to have smicha. So some bring a raya from this story, because if the other two that were with Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava had smicha just like him, their names would have been mentioned. The fact that only his name is mentioned is because he was the one that had smicha. The other two did not. But now the Gemara asks on this, Rab Meir. We said over here Rab Meir was one of these five that Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava gave smicha to. But Rab Meir, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava samchei? Is Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava the one that gave him smicha? But for Rabbi Bar Chana said, Rabbi Yechanan, the name of Rabbi Yechanan, that Kol Ha'omer, whoever says that Rab Meir lo samchei Rabbi Akiva, that Rab Meir did not get smicha from Rabbi Akiva, ein alatoya, is making a mistake. So Rab Meir already had smicha from before from Rabbi Akiva. So the Gemara answer is samchei Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva gave him smicha, but v'loi kibloi, but they didn't accept him. And Rashi says because at that time he was still young, he was still a bacher, so they didn't accept the smicha that he got from Rabbi Akiva. Then samchei Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava. Later on, Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava gave him smicha and v'kibloi, and then it was accepted. So he got smicha 2 different times. In connection to this, that the Gemara says here, that if not for the fact that Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava gave smicha to the Chachamim at that time, so the Gemara's lashon is Batlu Dine Knossos Mi Yisrael. There's a famous Rambam that the Rambam writes in Pirush HaMishnayos, and also in Mishnah Torah, in the Sefer, the Rambam writes in Hilchos Sanhedrin that you're able to give smicha even after the chain of smicha is batel ishmi piyish, going back to Moshe Rabbeinu. But if you can gather all the Chachamim of Eretz Yisrael, and everybody will agree to give smicha to someone, you could be mechadash the smicha again. And the Rambam says, because otherwise, how is the smicha ever going to be nischadash again after that chain was broken? So it must be that if all Chachmei Yisrael together are maskim, in Eretz Yisrael that is, are maskim to give someone smicha, then you can give smicha again. And at the time of Beis Yosef, there was a famous argument about this between the Maribei Rav, which got all the Chachamim of Tzfas and most of the Chachamim of Eretz Yisrael to give him smicha, and he wanted to start the smicha again. And then there was the Maral Bach that lived in Yerushalayim, and they sent him a letter about this, how most of the Chachamim in Eretz Yisrael agreed to be Mechadash Smicha again based on the Rambam, and he disagreed. He argued against it, and he didn't want to give his haskama, he didn't want to give his agreement to this smicha. It's a big argument. There's a lot that was written about it in those times. So here it's based on this Gemara here that says, Batlu Dine Knossos, and the Gemara it's mashma, that if not for the fact that Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava gave them the smicha, it wouldn't have continued. So it's mashma that you can't ever restart smicha again. But the Rambam says that it could be what Rabbi Yehuda ben Bava is saying, that in order to get all the Chachamim of Eretz Yisrael to agree, first of all, to gather them all together is very difficult. And second of all, to get them all to agree, that would be even more difficult, as it happened then, that they didn't all agree. So that's why it says here that it would be bottle. Okay, Zok the Gemara Vaytom Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi said about this smicha, Ein smicha b'chutz la'aretz. You can't give smicha in chutz la'aretz. Or the Gemara actually here clarifies exactly what this means. So first, the Gemara says, "Mai ein smicha." What does it mean when it says there is no smicha in chutz la'aretz? Ileme, if you would say, it means to say, "D'loi daini dinei knosses klal b'chutz la'aretz." It doesn't mean that you can't give smicha in chutz la'aretz, but it means that you can't use your smicha to then paskin the halachas of knas outside of Eretz Yisrael. But that's not true, because Vatanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Sanhedrin Neiheges, the Sanhedrin can paskin bein ba'aretz, both in Eretz Yisrael and bein b'chutz la'aretz, even out of Eretz Yisrael as well. So they can paskin even outside Eretz Yisrael once you have smicha. So what does it mean that there's no smicha in chutz la'aretz? Elo, so rather what this means is deloi samchinon b'chutz la'aretz. You can't give smicha outside of Eretz Yisrael. The smicha has to be given over only in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so now, based on this, the Gemara says, Pshita, the following would be obvious, Saimchin b'chutz la'aretz. If the ones that are giving the smicha, they are outside of Eretz Yisrael, v'nismachin, and the ones that are receiving the smicha are ba'aretz, are in Eretz Yisrael, meaning that they're not in their presence. The ones that are giving the smicha are outside of Eretz Yisrael, the other ones, they're far away, they're in Eretz Yisrael, but so you can't give smicha this way, because ha'amrinon deloi, because we said that you can't give smicha if the ones that are giving the smicha are in chutz la'aretz, they can't. So now the question though is, Elo Soimchin ba'aretz. If the ones that are giving the smicha are in Eretz Yisrael, and they want to give smicha to Chachamim that are not there in front of them, where are they? They're b'chutz la'aretz. What's the halach in such a case? According to Rashi's pshat in this Gemara, the main point of the question of the Gemara is the fact that the ones that are receiving the smicha are not in the presence of the ones that are giving the smicha. And the Gemara is really asking, when you give someone smicha, Does he have to be in your presence, or could you give smicha to a chacham that you know that he knows how to learn and he's great, and even if he's not in front of you, even if he's far away in Chutz La'aretz? That's really the shaila of the Gemara. According to other Rishonim, though, I think the Yad Ramah says that if that was the shaila, the Gemara wouldn't be speaking about Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz, because then even in Eretz Yisrael itself, if you're giving smicha to someone that's not in your presence, it would be the same shaila. The Gemara here is asking whether this requirement that it should be in Eretz Yisrael, does that include also the ones that are receiving the smicha, that they have to be in Eretz Yisrael along with you when you're giving the smicha? Toshama, so the Gemara brings the raya that Rabbi Yechanan have a mitztayir alei that Rav Shemen bar Abba. Rabbi Yechanan was pained by the fact that his student Rav Shemen bar Abba that he wasn't with him in the same place of him, and he couldn't give him smicha. So you see that in order to give smicha, the one you're giving smicha to has to be in front of you. Rab Shimon ben Zirud, Rab Shimon ben Zirud, and another Tana along with him. Umanu, and who is this? Rab Yenison ben Achmoi, or V'amri la, others say that it's the other way around. Rab Yenison ben Achmoi, and V'chadime, and one that's along with him, Umanu Rab Shimon ben Zirud. In other words, the question over here is who amongst them was greater. So, when there was another Tana that was, or Chacham that was with them, in front of them, they gave him smicha. And the one that was not in front of them, they did not give him any smicha. Rab Chanine v'Rab Hoshia, the two great Tanoim of Rab Chanine, or really Ameroim, Rab Chanine and Rab Hoshia have a komishtakid Rab Yechanan le'mismechino. Rabbi Yechanan was working hard. He made an effort to give them smicha. And loy have a mistaya milsa. And it did not work out. He couldn't give them smicha. Rashi here says, because we said before that you have to have 3, so he was looking for another 2 to join him, and he couldn't find another 2 to join him. So some say that from this Rashi is mashma, that he argues with the Rambam, and he holds that you actually have to have 3 that have smicha to give the smicha. Because if you only just need another 2 chachamim along with Rabbi Yechanan himself that has smicha, why was it so hard to find another 2 chachamim? So according to Rashi, it's mashma you need all 3 to have a proper smicha. So have a komitztayet tuve, and he was pained by this a lot, that he couldn't give them the smicha. So Amrulei, Rab Chanine and Rab Hoshia told them, Lo nitztayir ma, don't be pained by this. Because the reason why we're not zeicha to get smicha is because the anan mid the base Eli kasinon. We come from, our lineage is from Eli Akayin. And now the Amr Rab Shmuel bar Nachman, Amr Rab Yenison, Rab Shmuel bar Nachman said in the name of Rab Yenison that minayin she'ein ismachin lebeis Eli. How do we know that from those that come from the house of Eli do not get smicha? Shenema, because the pasuk says lo yiyeh zakin bebeischa kol hayomim, that he was cursed that there won't be a zakin in his house by his descendants all of their life. Now, what is this pasuk referring to? My zakin. What does it mean that there won't be a zakin? If it's saying that those that have his descendants will not live to an old age, literally, so that we already know from another pasuk. The pasuk says, "Kol marbes beischa yamusu anoshim," that most of the people of your home will die when they are anoshim, which means when they come to the age of 18. So then, what does it mean? This was because of the children of Eli that sinned in the Beis Hamikdash, so therefore his family was cursed this way. So then, what does it mean that there won't be a zakin? Ela smicha. It refers to smicha. And Rashi explains this means that there are those from the family of Eli, and there were even amongst the Amiroim from the family of Eli. I think it was Rabbeva, the Gemara brings, he came from the family of Eli. They did live to an older age, and the reason was because in the merit of their Teira and Gemilas Chasadim, they did live to an older age, but still, smicha they never got. That's this pasuk when it says La'iyeh zaken beveischa, and therefore Rab Chanine and Rab Hoshia didn't end up getting smicha from Rabbi Yechanan. There are actually some Mefarshim that say that here in the Gemara it says Rab Chanine and Rab Hoshia. It says Rabbi Hoshia with a not Rav. Really, you should be guided in the Gemara. Rab Chanine and Rav Hoshia, not Rabbi, because they didn't get smicha. We learned yesterday that ones that had smicha are called Rabbi. Without smicha, with a chachamim and bavel, they were called Rav. Without the yud, not Rabbi. Again, what? Yeah, the ones that they're named Rabbi is because they got smicha, but in Bavel, because they didn't have smicha, so that yud in the end of the word is missing. It's only Rav. Another story, the Gemara says, Rab Zeire have a metamer. Rab Zeire was hiding milimismechei, and he didn't want to get smicha. And the reason was because the Amar Rabbi Lazar said, La'olam have a kabel v'kayim. You should hide yourself in the dark, and you'll be able to live and exist. Because as Rashi here brings, that someone that gets into a position of Rabbanus. So the Gemara says in Psachim that you're in a position of authority. Rabbanus kaivra, it ends up burying you. So he didn't want to get smicha, so he shouldn't be appointed to a position of authority of Rabbanus. But then, Kivin the Shamal Hadam Rabbi Lazar, he heard that there was something else Rabbi Lazar said, that Ein Adam Eil Gedula, a person does not get elevated to a position of authority, of greatness, to be a Rav and so on, Elam Kem Moichlin Loi Al Kalav, unless Hashem forgives him all of his sins. So then he wanted to come to this level. So Imtzi Le'a Nafshei, he made himself available for smicha, to get ordained. Kisamchu Rab Zeire, when they gave smicha to Rab Zeire, Sharu Lehachi. They sang in front of him as follows: Loik chal, no eye makeup, v'loy shrak, and no blush, no makeup for the face, v'loy pirchus, and no braiding of the hair. None of this is necessary for him. V'yalas chayin, and he has beautiful, very graceful, and very beautiful. This is usually a song, Rashi says, that's sung for a kala. But they sang this for Rab Zeira when he got smicha. Some say that this, I think the Yad Ramah says that this was singing about his great midas, his great character. And the Marsha says that this refers to the great level of Torah that he had, that they were praising him for. Now, Kisamchua l'Rab Ami l'Rabasi. When they gave smicha to Rab Ami and Rabasi, Sharu luhu hachi. They sang for them as follows: Kol mindain smuchulana. Anyone that's similar to these two, you should give them smicha. And loy tismuchu lana, and do not give smicha, loy misarmiten, not to anybody that's like sarmiten, which is rags or shmatis. Someone with, Rashi says it means that someone that teaches Torah and he doesn't give proper reasons and explanations for what he's teaching, so it's like a shmata, which is a piece of fabric that cannot be used. V'loy misarmisin, and not misarmisin, which refers to someone that teaches Torah and he doesn't teach it properly. He's mahapach. Rashi says it's from Lashon Saras as Amikra, someone that teaches things not correctly.
His logic is inverted.
His logic is inverted. Okay, thank you. V'amrila, and others say that they said don't give smicha loy mechamisen, not the chamisen, which refers to someone that holds back from giving the reasons for Torah, explanations, and v'loy mitormisen, and not tormisen. Rashi here actually says on tormisen loy sparish, that he doesn't know what tormisen means. But in another place, in Rashi and Ksubis, there's a parenthesis there that says that Tormison means empty people. Don't give them smicha. Rabavahu. Now, regarding Rabavahu, which was a great Ameire, ki hava asi mimisifta lebe keser. When he came from the yeshiva and he would go to the Caesar, Rabavahu, besides being a great Ameire and teaching Torah, he was also a big asken b'tzarchet tzibur, and he was close to the government. So when he was coming to the house of the Keser, Nafki matronisa de Bekeiser, the noble women from the house of the Keser came out, the Masharian lady, and they would sing for him, Rabba Da'ame, the teacher of his people, Madramana de Umsei, the leader of his nation, Butzina de Nahaira, the candle that the light burns on it, Brich Masyach L'Shalom, the blessed is your coming in peace, L'Shalom, for peace. This was the greatness of Rabba Vo, that was both a big teacher of Torah, and at the same time he was also Isaac B'tzarchet Tzibur. Yeah, okay, this is the conclusion of the whole sugya about smicha. Now, just to remind you what we learned before, 10 blot ago, on Daf Daled, there the Gemara spoke about the smicha that we have today. Don't confuse that with the smicha we have today. There, before the Gemara spoke about the smicha of Yoyre, Yadin, Yadin, where you give permission to someone to paskin halachas of Issa V'heter, or paskin negei to Dine Mamenis, and that's to get the authority from the Rav. But this is not the smicha we're talking about here. Here we're talking about the smicha that goes back Ish Mipiyesh until Moshe Rabbeinu. Different kind of smicha. Okay, now going back to the Mishnah. Arifas Egla B'Shleisha. The Mishnah said that the Arifa of the Egla, this is the Egla Arufa, when you find a dead body outside of a city. So there's the mitzvah of Egla Arufa, and you have to measure which city it was closest to. So here, the Arifas Egla, we're not referring to the actual cutting off of the neck of the animal, but it's referring to measuring to the closest city. So it has to be done with a bezin of 3. That was the opinion of Rab Shimon. And Rab Yehuda actually said in the Mishnah that has to be with a bezin of 5. Tan Rabbanan, we learned in the Braise. V'yatzu zikenecha v'shevtecha. The pasuk says that your elders and your judges go out. Zikenecha shnayim. So zikenecha is 2, plural. Shevtecha shnayim is another 2. So that's 4. Ve'im bezin shakel, a bezin can't be even. Ma'isifin alein oid echad. So you add another 1. Harei kan chamisha. So this is in total 5. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, that's Rabbi Yehuda's opinion. Rab Shimon says kenecha shnayim. That we dash in just the words kenecha, which means 2. Then vein bezin shakel, you can't have an even bezin. Masifan alei moedachad, you add one more arei kan shloisha, so you have 3. So the Gemara right away addresses with Rab Shimon, Hi sheftecha my ovidle. What does he learn out from the word sheftecha? Why doesn't he learn from there the number of another 2? And says the Gemara, Hahu mibayale lemiyuchadim shebesheftecha. He learns from the word sheftecha that you can't just take any zikanim for this any people to be the ones that are going to do the measuring, but it has to be sheftecha. Miyuchadim shebesheftecha means it has to be from the Sanhedrin Gedaila, from the Sanhedrin of 71. Rabbi Yehuda, now, so according to Rabbi Yehuda, that does learn from B'Shevtecha the number of judges. From where does he know that it has to be from the Sanhedrin Gedaila? Miziknei zikenecha nafke. The pasuk could have said v'yatzu ziknei v'Shevtecha, and it says instead zikenecha. So we could learn both. We could learn the number of 2, and we could also learn that it has to be zikenecha from the special ones, meaning from the Sanhedrin. Rab Shimon says no. There's actually 2 things that we have to learn out here. If the pasuk would say just ziknei, hava minne ziknei ashuk, I would think that maybe this refers to any elders, anyone, any Talmidei Chachamim in the street, even if they're not part of any Sanhedrin at all. Not only not from the Sanhedrin Gedaila, but not even from a Sanhedrin Katana, a Sanhedrin of 23. So Kasav Rachmana zikenecha. So therefore the Torah says kenecha, so we know that they have to be part of a Sanhedrin. But that's not enough, because vi kasav zikenecha, if it would only say kenecha, hava minne Sanhedrin Katana, I would think that even the elders from a Sanhedrin of 23 is enough to be used for the Egla Rufa. Therefore, the Torah adds Sheftecha, which means the unique ones, which is the Sanhedrin Gedaila that sits in the Beis HaMikdash. Now, Rabbi Yehuda, according to Rabbi Yehuda, why don't we need to learn out both of these points as well? Says the Gemara, Gomar Ziknei, he learns out Gzeir Shave, the word Ziknei that it says here, and the word ziknei that it says by v'mivisamchu ziknei eidas yedem. When it says that the ziknei eidah lean their hands on a carbon, so over there mala alam yichadin shebeida, just like there it means those that are unique amongst the eidah, which is the Sanhedrin, or actually it refers to the Sanhedrin. Afkam yichadin shebizkenecha. Here too it refers to the yichadin amongst the zikenecha. So that's the Gzeir Shava that Rabbi Yehuda learns out. But the Gemara asks in this, how could you say Rabbi Yehuda learns out this Gzeir Shava? If he's learning out from there, from the smiche that's done by a carbon, so then Leilef Kulam Hasam. He could learn it all out from there. What's the halacha by smiche? Over there, by the smiche, it also has to be with 5 that have to do the smiche. So why do you need over here the source in the pasuk when it says keinecha, sheftecha, which means 4, and then you add a 5th because it can't be even. But if you're learning it out from the Gzeir Shava of the smicha by a carbon, there it has to be 5, so you can just learn it out all from there. So then the words keinecha, sheftecha here are extra. And says the Gemara. The Gemara concludes the questions keinecha v'sheftecha lamali. So the 2 words here, keinecha and sheftecha, are extra. So Ella, the Gemara retracts from this and says Rabbi Yehuda does not hold to this Gzeir Shava. So Ella, how does Rabbi Yehuda know that you have to have over here 4 and then a 5th because you can't have a bezdin shakel? It's the vav of the sheftecha liminyana. He does need the word sheftecha to teach that it has to be from the Sanhedrin Gedaila, but it's the vav, the extra vav of this sheftecha that we learn from that you have to have another 2 judges, and that's how he knows that it has to be in total 5. Rab Shimon, vav le'darish. Rab Shimon does not darshan the vav here. That's the source of the machlekes, whether you have to have 3 or 5. But the Gemara now goes on in the continuation of the pasuk. After it says v'yatzus keinecha and v'sheftecha, then it goes on and it says ela meyata. The pasuk also says v'yatzu, and they go out. So shnayim. Why wouldn't we say then we learned that you need another 2 from the plural term v'yatzu? And then it says umadudu, and they measure to the closest city. Shnayim. That's another plural term that should be another 2. So if so, Rabbi Yehuda that we said holds that it should be 5. Hare tisha. We have another 4. It should be 9. Let Rab Shimon that said that it should be 3, so we have another 4. It should be shiva. It should be 7. And says the Gemara, hahu, those words that we just brought, mi bayale likadetanya. We learn from them something else, like it says in the Braisa. When it says v'yatzu, that they go out, what it means is hein v'loy shluchan. They themselves have to go out. They can't send any shliach in their place. And when it says umadadu, that they measure, what do we learn from this? Sha'afila nimtza ba'alil li'ir, even if the dead body is found very openly, and it's clear that it's close to one city, nevertheless, tzarich lasik b'medida. They still have to go ahead and measure to see which city it's closest to. And the reason for this, the Mefarshim say, is because one of the reasons they measure is not just to know which city it's actually closer to know where it came from, but it's actually the whole to-do and the public activity that the Beis Din comes and they measure, that itself will publicize what happened, that a body was found dead, and that may lead to finding the murderer. That's a part of the purpose of this, and therefore it always has to be done. Says the Gemara, Masnisen, Deloy, Kihai Tana. What we learned here in the Mishnah, the two opinions, whether it's 3 that measure or 5 that measure, it's not like the Tana in this Braisa. The Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, when it says in the pasuk, "V'yatzu zekenecha v'shevtecha," what does it mean when it adds shevtecha? Zekenecha zu Sanhedrin. Zekenecha means that the Sanhedrin has to go out. When it says v'shevtecha, what it means is melech, the king has to come out, and the kohen gadol. It also refers to the kohen gadol. Melech, how do we see that shevtecha refers to a king? D'chsiv melech b'mishpat yamed eretz. The king, with justice, he establishes the land. So we see the term mishpat, and over here shevtecha is referring to the king. Kohen gadol, d'chsiv uvasa la kohenim alaviyim v'la shofet. So it says in the pasuk shofet regarding the kohenim and the leviyim. So therefore over here the king and the kohen gadol has to come out to take care of this matter. So now this the shaila was asked regarding Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's opinion. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov b'chada polik. Does Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov only argue on this point here? What the type of shevtecha is? Whether shevtecha means the judges or shevtecha means the king and the kohen gadol, or betarti polik. Maybe he argues on 2 points. And the Gemara explains. Do I say b'melech v'kohen gadol polik? He only argues regarding the point that you have to have the king and the kohen gadol as well. Avul b'Sanhedrin, but regarding what number of judges of the Sanhedrin you need for this, so that he doesn't argue. Iker Rabbi Yehuda, Iker Rabbi Shimon, or he holds like Rabbi Yehuda that it's 5, or he holds like Rabbi Shimon that it's 3. Or perhaps b'Sanhedrin nami polik. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, that is, argues also regarding the Sanhedrin. The Amma Kula Sanhedrin Be'inan. He's actually saying that when it says Zikainecha, and the lashon of before in the Braisa was Zu Sanhedrin, he's saying that you have to bring out the entire Sanhedrin of 71 with the king, with the Kohen Gadol, to go and measure which city the body was closer to. That would be a very big, to publicize this to the greatest extent. As I mentioned, one of the ideas here is to find the murderer. Rav Yosef, so Rav Yosef said, Toshama, I'll bring you a raya for this. It says in a Braisa, now this is a Braisa that talks about the halacha of a zaken mamre. If you have one person from the Sanhedrin that rebels against the Sanhedrin paskins one way, and he paskins differently, and he doesn't follow what the Sanhedrin says, and he does different. So the halacha is, he's chayiv chenek. He has to be put to death by chenek. Now, this has to take place in the Beis HaMikdash. That's the only place where, if the Sanhedrin is in its place, where they sit in the Lishkas HaGazis in the Beis HaMikdash, and there he rebels against the Beis Din, he gets chenek. Not if it happened anywhere else with the Sanhedrin outside. So the Braisa here says, Motzon abeis pagi, if this Zakim Mamre that's rebelling against the Sanhedrin, so he encounters the Sanhedrin where abeis pagi. Abeis pagi, Rashi says, is an area that's still inside Yerushalayim. Others say that this is an area that they added to Yerushalayim, so it was considered to be part of Yerushalayim. So he found the Sanhedrin there. V'himra alein, and he rebels, he argues with the Sanhedrin, and he then goes and does differently than the Sanhedrin. I would think that this would count as a rebellion, that he would be chayiv misa for this. Talmud Loimar, so the pasuk says regarding this halacha of the zakim mamre, v'kamta v'alisa elamokim. You got up and went up to the place there in the Beis HaMikdash. Malamet shahamakim goyrim. That the halacha of zakim mamre only applies if he's in the place in the Beis HaMikdash there with the Sanhedrin. Then he'll be a zakim mamre. That's the Braisa. Okay, so now the Gemara will discuss what exactly happened over here. Why was the entire Sanhedrin of 71 outside of the Beis HaMikdash somewhere in Yerushalayim? The Nafik Kama. How many of the Sanhedrin came out? If you're going to say that only a minority of the Sanhedrin came out, and there the Zakim Mamre rebelled against them, but then why that wouldn't even be considered a rebellion at all? Because Dilma Hanach Deika Gavoi Kaimikavasei. Maybe those that are still inside the Beis HaMikdash agree to him. Why do we consider this to be a rebellion against the Sanhedrin? So Ela Pshita the Nafak Kulu. The case here is that the entire Sanhedrin of 71 came out from the Beis HaMikdash, and there he encountered them, and he's rebelling against the Sanhedrin. Says the Gemara Lamai, what was the purpose here? Why did the entire Sanhedrin come out? If you're going to say that it was just some permissible matter, not for any specific reason or mitzvah, they just all came out together, mi matzi nafki. Are they allowed to come out from where they are supposed to be sitting in the Beis HaMikdash? There's a pasuk that says, regarding the Sanhedrin sitting in the Beis HaMikdash, that Shorereich Agan Hasar al Yechsar Amozek. So this pasuk in Shir HaShirim is darshan regarding the Sanhedrin. Shorereich means your navel is like a gan hasar, which means like in a half a circle. Now this is a mashal that's being used for the Sanhedrin, which is in the Beis HaMikdash. They're considered to be like just like in the person's body, the center of the body. They're the center of the entire world and of the entire Klal Yisrael. And they sit a gan hasar, like in a half a circle. It's like a vessel that's made like in a half a circle. And on this it says, al yechsar hamozek, that it should not be missing from the Sanhedrin. They're not allowed to all go out. There has to be at least a third of the Sanhedrin that always remains. Ashir says, and Taisus discusses this barichas, that mazak here refers like when you dilute wine and you have 1 part wine and 2 parts water, that's how it's diluted. So therefore, it's what it's saying here is al yechsar mazak, that percent of a third should not be missing in the Beis HaMikdash. So there always has to be some of the Sanhedrin that remains there, at least in the 23 that should remain there, a third. So how can we say here in this Braise that the entire Sanhedrin came out to this place, Beis Pagi in Yerushalayim? So it must be, what is this Braise talking about? Lidvar mitzvah, that the Sanhedrin came out for the purpose of a mitzvah. Now, Hechidami, what mitzvah is it that the Sanhedrin is coming out for, the entire Sanhedrin? So, don't you think the mitzvah is l'medida segla, that there was a case of a dead body that they had to measure to the city, and they had to have the entire Sanhedrin present for this? Now, who says that you need the entire Sanhedrin present? Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, and this is Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's opinion, the Oma Kula Sanhedrin be'inon, that you need the entire Sanhedrin from this. So from this brayso we can prove that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov argues on this point as well, that you can't have 3 or 5, you have to have the entire Sanhedrin. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye answered Rav Yosef that it's not a raya for this brayse. I can tell you that there was a different reason why the whole Sanhedrin came out. Like, this is not necessarily the reason. Rather, Kagain, Sheyatsu, the reason the whole Sanhedrin came out was they came out lahaisif ala'ir v'ala'azares, to add to the boundaries of the city of Yerushalayim. If you want to add to the boundaries of the city of Yerushalayim, you have to have the entire Sanhedrin for this. And there's other things that have to be done along with that as well, but you need the whole Sanhedrin. Or if you want to add to the Azara, to the size of the Azara of the Beis HaMikdash, you need the whole Sanhedrin for this. Kedetnan, as we learned in the Mishnah, ein meisifin ala'ir v'ala'azares. You can't add to the city or to the Azara of the Beis HaMikdash. This is the first Mishnah here in the Pedic. Ela bebezin shel shivim ve'echad. Unless you have the Sanhedrin of 71. So therefore, there's no raya from here that Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov holds it for Egel Arufa. You have to have 71. But nevertheless, the Gemara brings a brayse. Tanya kavasei de Rav Yosef, and in a brayse we learned clearly, like Rav Yosef understood the brayse we quoted, that Motzana Beis Pagi v'himra aleyan, this individual, he found the whole Sanhedrin, the Mazakin Mamre, and he rebelled against them. And when is this? Kagon sheyatzu lemedidas egla, the whole Sanhedrin came out to measure in the case of Egla Arufa. And then it adds also Ulahisif Aleir, or when they wanted to add to the boundaries of the city Yerushalayim, or Vala Azares, or to the Azara. Yalchel Shateam Rasam Ra, I would think that his rebellion would be counted as a rebellion that is Chayiv Miset, Hamad Loima, Vakamta, Va'alisa Elamakim, Alamat Shamakim Gairim, that it's only if they're in their place in the Beis HaMikdash. So in this brayse we clearly see that there is an opinion, which is Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, that says that you need 71 for the mitzvah of Egla Arufa. Going back to the Mishnah, it said neter avai or ma'aseh sheni shein dom of Yeduin. If you have the grows in a tree in the 4th year, or from the ma'aseh sheni, these are the produce that has to be brought to Yerushalayim, and you want to redeem it and then bring the money to Yerushalayim. But we're talking over here about produce that the value of it is not known according to the market value. So then b'shloisha, you have to have 3 that should evaluate this properly in order to be able to redeem it. So Tana Rabbanan and Abraisa we learned what's a case of the fruits of Ma'aseh Sheni that you can't just evaluate it by the market value. Perisher kivu, fruits that are rotting, so therefore you don't know what the value now is. Or v'yayin shehikrim, wine that's going sour, it's becoming vinegar. Umayis shechlidu, or money that is rusting, and therefore you also don't know what this value is, and you're going to need 3 to evaluate this. Aton Rabbanon, in the Braise we learned, Ma'aseh Sheni shein dom of Yeduin, the Ma'aseh Sheni, that its value is not known according to market value. Paiden Naisa, you have to redeem it, b'shloisha lekuchais. It has to be by 3 buyers, meaning it has to be 3 different merchants that are going to evaluate its value. You can't have just one person or three that are actually together, but it has to be three separate merchants that evaluate this. But not by three that are not merchants. It has to be specifically three separate merchants. This is Rashi's pshat that we're talking here about evaluating. According to other Rishonim, it's not talking about the evaluation process, but it's talking about if you're auctioning it. So it has to be at least three were offered to buy this, and three are giving a price. So like this, you're sure that you get the best price because you're offering to three different people. And that's even if there's a guy amongst them as well, and and even if one amongst them is the owner himself of this produce. Rabbi Yirmiyah asked about this. How about if it's three merchants, but these are three merchants that are partners, and they're sharing their money together? Can these three merchants be used to evaluate this Ma'aseh Sheni that you want to redeem? Tashamas, the Gemara brings a eye from what it says in the Braise, Ish Ushtei Noshav, a man and his two wives, Paida Ma'aseh Sheni. They are three that can evaluate and they can redeem the Ma'aseh Sheni. She'ein dom of Yidun, the Ma'aseh Sheni we're talking about that when the money is not known by the market value. So here we see a man with his wives. The wives are supported by the husband. So it's all money that they have together, and still they can be used to evaluate the Ma'aseh Sheni. Says the Gemara, not necessarily are we talking about a case where the wives are sharing the money together with their husband. Dilme, maybe we're talking about Kagayin Rav Papa, Ubas Abasura. Rav Papa and the daughter of Abasura, which was his wife, even though usually the husband is supposed to support the wife, and then the wife's income goes to the husband. That's the way Chachamim instituted this. But a wife can say, I'm keeping my income and you need you to support me. So then it's possible that this brisa that said the husband and his two wives, who says the wives were supported by the husband? Maybe they were separated from the husband. They weren't together. One more point here, let's learn today. The Gemara says, Hagdesh is b'shloisha. When you come to redeem hektish, you also have to have three. Says the Gemara Masnisin the Leikai Tana. What it says in our Mishnah is not like this Tana here. The Tanya and the Braise we learned. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov Aimer. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, "Afilit si noira shel hektish." Even if you're coming to redeem a little fork from hektish, tzricha asara b'nei yadam liftaisa. You have to have 10 people in order to redeem from hektish. 10 to evaluate it in order to redeem it. Amalei Rav Papa la Abaye. Rav Papa says to Abaye. Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov's opinion is understood because he follows what Shmuel said. It says in the Parsha 10 times the expression of Kayanim when it speaks about redeeming from hektish. So it actually says there are 3 parshas there in the Torah. This is in Parshas B'chol Kaisai. First is the parsha of Erechin, which is one kind of hektish, and it says 3 times the term of Kayanim regarding redeeming. Then there's a parsha of a behemoth tmeya. If someone is makdish to hektish, a behemoth cannot be used for a carbon, there it says also 3 times the term Kayanim. And then later in the parsha it talks about a person that's makdish a piece of land, karka, and there it says 4 times the term of Kayanim. So in total it says 10 times the term of Kayanim in the parsha. So that's why Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says you need 10. However, according to the Rabbanan's opinion, shloisha minalu. From where do they know that you only need 3? If you'll say d'chsiv buhu shloisha, because regarding the parsha of behemoth tmeya, like I just mentioned, that's basically not only a behemoth tmeya, but any movable item that you makdish to hektish. So I learned from there by the behemoth tmeya, it says only 3 times. So from there I learned that it has to be 3 people to redeem from hektish. So that's regarding movable items. You could learn from that parsha. But karkois, but later on regarding a piece of property, d'chsiv buhu arba, there it says 4 to sagi barba. It should be enough to have 4 as judges for this. Now, Vichid Taimeh, the Gemara goes on to say, and if you'll say, Hachanami, that's actually true. If you're coming to redeem properties from hektish, it's enough to have 4, because in the parsha by the properties, it says 4 times kayanim. But Allah Matnan, why did we learn in our Mishnah? The Mishnah says, HaKarkois, when you're coming to redeem properties from hektish, Tisha, the kayin. You need to have 9 judges, and at least one amongst them should be a kayin. So what's the reason you need 10? If regarding the parsha of Karkois over there, it actually only says 4. So Elamai, what are you going to answer me? The Mishalmi Bu Asara. That the reason why you need 10 is because we don't only count the 4 that it says by Karkois, but you also include from what it says earlier. As I mentioned, by Erechin it says 3, by Behemoth Tmeya it says 3, and then by the Karkois it says 4. So in total it's 10. So you're not only counting what it says by the Karkois itself, you're counting what it says before as well. So if so, Hekdesha is the Mishlemi Behu Shita Leboy Shita. So if that's the case, Any movable item that you makdish to hektish, where it says it in the parasha of Behemoth May that you makdish to hektish, so over there you should need 6, because you should count what it said before. It says before 3 times Kainim by Erechin, then again another 3 by the parasha of Behemoth May, so together it should be 6. On this, the Gemara says, Kashya. The Gemara remains with a question on this.